Welcome, dear friends. Today I'm sharing with you a story of loss, redemption, and the power of love to heal even the most fractured family. Enjoy the story. Margaret Wilson breathed a sigh of relief as she closed the heavy oak door of the sprawling Hamilton mansion behind her. Another day, another dollar, she thought wryly to herself. But lordy, sometimes those dollars came at a steep price, especially when dealing with the eccentric and demanding lady of the house, Sophia Hamilton. Margaret had been the housekeeper for the Hamiltons going on 7 years now. She'd taken the job shortly after the tragic death of their only son Maximilian in a car accident. The previous housekeeper, Trudy, had confided in Margaret that the household used to be a much happier place before losing Max. Sophia was always a bit particular, Trudy had said delicately, but losing Max just pushed her right over the edge into cuckoo land. Particular was an understatement, Margaret thought as she began her daily cleaning routine. Obsessive was more like it. Sophia fancied herself a descendant of some obscure European royal lineage, a claim that had never actually been verified, but which she clung to with a white-knuckled grip. Everything in the Hamilton household revolved around maintaining the illusion of aristocracy, from the stuffy decor to Sophia's collection of ostentatious hats. Poor George Hamilton, a retired investment banker, rarely got a word in edgewise. He mostly puttered around the property, hiding in his workshop to tinker with woodworking projects and avoid his wife's sharp tongue. Margaret felt for him. It couldn't be easy being married to a woman who treated her own family like subjects in her imaginary queendom. As Margaret dusted the potted ficus trees in the sunroom, a flash of movement outside the window caught her eye. She froze, peering through the glass. There, lingering by the front gate, was the same young girl Margaret had spotted several times this week. A wisp of a thing, maybe 8 or 9 years old, swimming in ragged, ill-fitting clothes. The girl was always alone, her enormous blue eyes full of sorrow. Margaret's heart clenched. The child looked half-starved. Yesterday, Margaret had tried to offer her some food, but the skittish girl had turned and ran before Margaret even opened the front door. Now she was back again today, watching the house intently as if willing someone to notice her. Making a split-second decision, Margaret strode purposefully to the front door. She'd never forgive herself if she didn't at least try to help this poor neglected child. Easing the door open, Margaret called out in her most soothing voice, "Hello there, sweetheart. Please don't run away. I promise I won't hurt you. I just want to help." The girl remained rooted in place, tracking Margaret's approach with a wary expression. As Margaret reached the gate, she crouched down to the girl's eye level. "You look hungry, dear. Why don't you come inside for a bit? I'll make you something to eat." The girl hesitated, shifting from foot to foot. She glanced up and down the street as if checking to make sure the coast was clear. Margaret held her breath, praying the child would accept her offer, and also that the Hamiltons wouldn't choose this moment to return home early. Finally, the girl gave a tiny nod and took a tentative step forward. Margaret beamed at her. "Atta girl, come on then, let's get you fed." She ushered the girl through the gate and into the house, guiding her to a chair at the kitchen table. "Now you just sit right there and I'll fix you a bowl of my famous chicken and stars soup, guaranteed to warm you up from the inside out." As Margaret bustled around the kitchen, the little girl perched stiffly on the edge of her seat, looking around with saucer-wide eyes as if she expected the opulent furnishings to disappear at any moment. Margaret's heart broke anew. This child had clearly been through a lot in her short life. No kid should look at a warm, safe kitchen like it was a mirage about to dissolve into mist. Margaret placed a steaming bowl of soup and a plate of buttered rolls in front of the girl. "There you go, honey. Eat up." At first the girl ate with painstaking slowness, as if afraid the food would be snatched away. But hunger soon won out over caution, and she began slurping the soup, dunking the rolls to soak up every last drop. Margaret watched her with a small, sad smile, mentally calculating how many extra meals she could sneak from the pantry to send home with the child. When the girl had polished off a second helping, Margaret gently probed, "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl hesitated, studying Margaret with those haunting blue eyes, deciding if she could be trusted. "Lily," she said at last, so softly Margaret had to strain to hear. Lily, what a beautiful name for a beautiful girl. My name's Margaret, Margaret Wilson. Lily nodded solemnly, processing this information as she nibbled a third roll. Margaret sensed the child was unused to simple kindness from adults. She'd have to tread carefully, build trust slowly. Do you live around here, Lily? Margaret asked, keeping her tone light and conversational. Lily shook her head, then shrugged and bobbled her head side to side as if to say, sort of. Swallowing a mouthful of bread, she elaborated quietly. I came to the city to find my daddy. My mom died when I was born, and my grandma. Lily ducked her head, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. Grandma's mean. She always said she was going to send me to live with my dad. Said he didn't want me neither, but she was sick of me eating all her food. Lily dug in her pocket and pulled out a tattered, much-folded scrap of paper. She carefully spread it flat on the table. Grandma wrote down his address, but I ate most of it. I didn't know what it said, and I was scared she really would send me away. I thought if I ate it, she couldn't make me go. But I saved this part. Lily pointed to the remaining fragment, which contained a partial street name. I've been looking for my daddy. I try to find houses that match the part I got. Margaret stared at the rumpled paper scrap in disbelief. This child, this baby, had been systematically scouring the city for her father, using nothing but a torn corner of an address. Walking for hours, knocking on doors, likely facing repeated rejection and disappointment. It was unthinkable. And now, if Margaret was understanding correctly, Lily had narrowed her search down to the Hamilton street. Did she think George Hamilton was her father? The dates didn't add up, but Lily was so young there was no telling what she understood about the passage of time. Just as Margaret opened her mouth to probe further, the front door slammed open with the unmistakable click-clack of Sophia Hamilton's designer heels on the marble tiles. Lily startled like a spooked rabbit, eyes wide with fear. Margaret! Sophia's imperious voice rang out. What is the meaning of this? Explain yourself at once! Sophia strode into the kitchen, George trailing behind her with a grim expression. She pulled up short at the sight of Lily hunched at the table. Who is this urchin? You know I don't allow unsavory characters in my home. Margaret stood slowly, placing herself protectively between Lily and her employer. She explained the situation as calmly as possible, though her voice shook with barely contained outrage on Lily's behalf. This is Lily, Mrs. Hamilton. She's been searching for her father. I was just giving her a meal. The poor thing is half-starved. I'll pay for the food out of my wages. Sophia's lips thinned to a razor-sharp line. Absolutely not. I won't have vagrants coming around filling their bellies on my dime. This is grounds for termination, Margaret. Consider your employment here finished, effective immediately. As the confrontation escalated, no one noticed Lily reaching into her pocket. Her trembling fingers closed around a dog-eared photograph. It was her only relic of her mother, a candid snapshot from when she was young and carefree, before the hardships of life had etched themselves into the lines of her face. Lily took the photo everywhere, a talisman and a way to feel close to the parent she'd never know. As Sophia's tirade reached a fever pitch, Lily's hand shook and the precious photo fluttered to the floor, unseen. George, silent until now, stooped to pick it up. He frowned at the image, a tickle of recognition tugging at his memory. The young woman's face, those eyes. It couldn't be. Could it? The photo was of their late son's estranged partner, Radha, a Romani woman whom Sophia had rejected because of her prejudices. With rising urgency, George stepped between his wife and Margaret. Sophia, stop! Look at this! He held out the photo, his hand trembling. This girl in the picture, it's Radha, Max's Radha. Sophia snatched the photo, ready to dismiss George's claim. But the moment she saw the image, the color drained from her face. No, she whispered. No, it's not possible. Her gaze whipped to Lily, cowering in her chair. She looked, really looked, at the child for the first time. The eyes, Max's eyes, Radha's eyes. Sophia pressed a hand to her throat as the undeniable truth crashed into her like a freight train. She's our granddaughter. No sooner had the words left Sophia's mouth than her eyes rolled back in her head and she crumpled to the floor in a dead faint. Chaos erupted as George shouted for Margaret to call an ambulance. In the pandemonium, No one noticed Lily slipping out the front door and running as if the hounds of hell were on her heels. By the time the paramedics arrived and the shock wore off, the Hamiltons' precious granddaughter had vanished into the city once again. 6 months later, the Hamilton household was transformed. Gone were the stuffy trappings of imagined aristocracy. In their place, the decor now reflected the vibrant, colorful personality of the mansion's newest resident, Lily Hamilton. It had taken weeks of scouring the city, a team of private investigators, and a hefty reward to locate Lily after her flight from the house that fateful day. George, racked with guilt over his complicity in Sophia's treatment of their son and his girlfriend, had been relentless in his search. Sophia, devastated by her own actions and terrified she had driven away her only chance at redemption, had thrown herself into the hunt with equal fervor. When they finally found Lily living in a rundown motel with her grandmother, a long and arduous custody battle ensued. Lily's grandmother, a hard and bitter woman, had initially refused to relinquish control, determined to keep the child's welfare benefits for herself. But the Hamiltons had the advantage of wealth and connections. In the end, they prevailed, and Lily came home to Maple Lane for good. Now, Lily was a vision of health and happiness, her once hollow cheeks filled out and her eyes sparkling with life. She doted on her grandparents, and they on her, each determined to make up for lost time and past mistakes. Sophia, in particular, had undergone a remarkable transformation. Her pretensions of royalty were forgotten, replaced by the fierce love and protectiveness of a grandmother who would move heaven and earth for her family. One crisp fall morning, Lily came bounding into the kitchen, her dark curls bouncing with excitement. "Grandma, Grandpa, guess what? I've been invited to sing at the Harvest Festival next week." Sophia gathered Lily into a warm hug, pride shining in her eyes. "Oh, my darling, that's wonderful. You have the voice of an angel. You'll be the star of the show." George beamed, ruffling Lily's hair affectionately. "That's our girl. A regular prodigy, just like your dad." At the mention of her father, Lily's smile turned wistful. "I wish he could be there to hear me sing. Him and Mom both." Sophia hugged Lily tighter, blinking back tears. "They will be, sweetheart. They'll be watching over you, so proud of the amazing girl you are." Lily nodded, taking a shaky breath. "I've been thinking. I'd like to take Dad's last name, to honor him. Can I be Lily Hamilton?" George and Sophia exchanged a glance heavy with emotion. "Of course you can," George said gruffly. "Nothing would make us happier. We'll take care of the paperwork right away." Lily threw her arms around her grandparents. "Thank you for everything, for finding me, for loving me, for giving me a real family. I know my daddy would be so happy that you're taking care of me now. It's like he and my mom found each other again in heaven, and they sent me to you so we could all be together one day. Does that make sense?" Sophia pressed a hand to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She nodded fiercely. "Yes, my darling, that makes perfect sense. Your daddy and your mom, they're watching over us, and they brought you home to us. We'll all be together again one day, but until then, we have each other." Margaret, who had been quietly wiping down the counters, tactfully turned away to give the family a private moment. Her own eyes stung with emotion. The love and healing in this once broken household was a beautiful thing to witness. Lily had been the missing piece, the catalyst for change and forgiveness. In saving her, the Hamiltons had saved themselves.